Okay, here we go. We've proven there's a brown dwarf in the solar system. We even know exactly where it is. And people always refer to, well, what about the tides? And yeah, guess what? Yeah, the tides. Why don't you read a little bit about the spring tide and king tides, and then come on back. But right now, this is about things that can kill you today, things that can kill you tomorrow, things that could kill you a week from now, hurt you. Okay? That's what this channel has always been about. It's about getting you informed and prepared. The state of the ice, surface ice in Alaska and Greenland is alarming to anybody who understands the dynamics of climate. And it's not climate change, people. We all know it's solar system change. If you watch this channel, you know that's what's going on. You know it doesn't have anything to do with carbon dioxide. And people are always reporting to Antarctica. You know, what about Antarctica? Well, guess what? Antarctica's losing ice now too. It's on its way down. But just read the first paragraph. This is amazing. This didn't get any coverage in 2003, although what a miserable year it was. 70,000 people in Europe died from heat in 2003. 7 years later, 10,000 people died in Russia. And you know, if that many people are dying in a single country, that it's happening all over the world. China, probably millions of people have died since 2011 from heat-related injuries. And when the elderly die in their homes, yeah, it's natural causes sometimes. Heat wave in Quebec, 2018, killed 91 people. And you know that's a conservative number. Japan, heat wave, 18,000 people sent to the emergency room. And what if the hospital power goes out? Then babies die and the elderly die. And that's been my biggest concern since we started the channel, is that people living in 115, 120 degree heat, they suffer a power outage. You can kill literally tens of thousands, if not millions of people under the right circumstances. If you have a car with air conditioning, you could survive. Even if you have shade outside, it does very little for you when your ground temperatures are 200 degrees in Pakistan and India. OMG, people. And still, there's people that will try to confuse you. They'll tell you it's carbon dioxide, and they'll blame corporate America. But this has been a process that we have been warning you about since 2007, 2008 maybe, when we started the channel. I can remember in 2012 we talked about the sun going to become our nemesis. Remember in 2011 we lost all our corn. We lost all of it in the Midwest plains and in the Southeast. Remember the drought in Texas killed millions of chickens and cows and trees. California heat wave kills 10,000 cattle by the end of the year. And in Karachi, in Pakistan, they lost thousands of people. And they're getting better. They're more educated because, if man has to adapt himself or he's going to pay the price. Many people chose not to pay that price and started taking precautions. They quit sending their kids to school. They started closing schools. They started canceling athletic meets and athletic events and tournaments. We're talking tennis tournaments. We're talking triathlon, biathlon, canceled because of one thing: the heat. Okay, calm down. I'm trying to breathe. Okay, boy, when I take a deep breath, it's kind of warm. So, I mean, all over the globe, this kind of carnage is taking place. And when in June they were breaking 2016 heat records from 2016, the year, look at the last couple lines. And social workers raced to the homes of older people, and look how they faded out. This is, I didn't fade it out. This is what the article did. Some reason this line gets faded out. To prevent mass death. Funny how that kind of faded out. To prevent mass death. And mass death is what Revelations is all about. I promised you I'd show you some radiation charts showing the radiation below 10 to the minus 8. The blue 0.5 angstroms is actually 0.05 nanometers. I mean, that's really 1/100th of a nanometer is really approaching gamma radiation. That's some high energy stuff there. And sometimes the blue and the red would flip-flop. Generally the red and the yellow kind of hang out together, but we're seeing changes. Look at this, the red line, which is 1 to 8 angstroms, or 0.01 to 0.8 angstroms, which is very intense X-rays. We're seeing a low level, but look at the amplitudes of the spread of the red line. That usually means there's a lot of particles that are still creating that energy. And here again, another one with the blue line way down at the bottom. Okay, they're really intense X-rays or gamma rays. But here we are today. All of these at background level, nothing going on our sun. No Earth-facing active regions to spike your X-rays, nothing. This is your background X-ray reading, and we know it's background X-ray readings because there's nothing happening on the sun. On these instruments that are measuring for one thing: X-rays, high energy X-rays, high energy extreme ultraviolet. And they're all residing a factor of 10 higher today than they were a year ago or 2 years ago. And then the Bible talks about plagues and locust swarms. Hello. And what's this about stereo ahead? This has been going on for almost a year now. Every stereo ahead H1 image shows that the lower half of the solar system is much brighter than the upper half. We should put a model together that would explain that. And the sea surface temperatures are real revealing about what kind of radiation you're getting, because it's hard to increase your sea surface temperature just with hot air. You've got to put a microwave to it. And when the oceans heat up, then carbon dioxide gets released. And people will tell you the carbon dioxide is warming the ocean. But no, the ocean warming is releasing the carbon dioxide. And then we go to the total solar irradiance, everybody, and we look at that trend and how it mimics the surface ocean temperature trends. This sun was so hot that 1/3 of the spectacled fruit bats in Australia, they died within a matter of a week. Yes. And so I always like to see what the white light is doing, because it gives me an idea of what the particles are doing. These particles, when electrons race through them, light up like a neon light. So when I look at Mauna Loa, or we know it as Milso, or we refer to it as Milso, I refer to it as Milso, and you see moving anomalies, flashing anomalies, and that usually means interacting, different orientation of white light. Also, that disk that was been around the sun for almost 2 years now, it used to look like a focusing cone or an hourglass. We said that that would be changing as things progress, and we're going to see more of a focusing cone. And gee, the left side you can see was blunted and cut off, and you can see on the right side we're starting to see stuff that looks like a cavity or a hole in that region. That tells me that in the majority of this helium, the neutral helium, is coming from above. And that's why the lower half of the entering, or the downflow, or the, how do I say this, upstream, the upstream origins of that helium is now starting to show through. And that's why we see blunting. That's why we see a glow all around the periphery of the sun in white light. That's why the left side of the focusing cone appears cut off and shut off, and that is why there's a cavity on the right side of the focusing cone. But what I wanted to point out was the glow at the top of the page. That glow has been moving from left to right over the course of this year, and this is the furthest to the right. It's kind of approaching the 1 o'clock position, and it makes me wonder that if that white glow does not represent helium from the brown dwarf and is actually tracking the position of that brown dwarf. If so, the brown dwarf has been moving left to right by our own calculations. And here we see white light drifting. Now you got it. White light has to have an origin. It's just not there. It's not there just because. And it's not chemtrails. This is actually focused onto the corona of the sun. So what's going on? And it's because the brown dwarf way up high has crossed over to the right and off the screen. And we thought we passed this brown dwarf in December and January. We said, yeah, it could be passing by us in between the brown dwarf and the sun. And we said there could be earthquake. And we said to be on guard for sudden magnetic changes. That would be kind of like telling you exactly where this brown dwarf was. And what happened, people, in January and December? What happened? We had the largest single drift and shift of our magnetic fields. Well, when you have a second magnet introduced into your magnetic system, you're going to shift it. But the cosmic rays are heating the solar system because they're glowing in the corona, making the sun white hot. And this helium is well known in the scientific community, but they quit talking about it, and they moved people away from the study of this helium once they figured out exactly what it was. The Japanese, they're not so tight-lipped on things with their space program, and they're talking about right here. You can see the third sentence down, it'll say right there, gravitational focusing cone of interstellar helium. Okay, now what the heck are they talking about? They're talking about the wind coming from a brown dwarf. Because our interstellar region was supposed to have been relatively sparse. We're supposed to be traveling through almost a void, okay, in space, which is why our climates had been relatively stable for centuries. But what did this satellite conclude? They concluded by measuring the speed and the temperature and the dynamics of the helium as it got to this spacecraft, this satellite called Nozomi, and they calculated that the helium came off that brown dwarf at 11,000 degrees Kelvin. The original temperature of the interstellar helium. So what do they mean by original temperature? Somebody kind of veiled that over. The original temperature of interstellar. Well, if you know the original temperature, then you know the origin. Does that make sense to you? So they're not telling you the origin. Nobody's telling you the origin. This channel is telling you the origin. And now you know why we have been under attack. Now, when it hit the presses in the scientific astronomy community that we were going through a local hot bubble of helium, many people tried to hide the fact of that origin. The origin, you know, remember, that ejects helium at 11,000 degrees Kelvin? That origin, well, some people tried to tell you it's from the Big Bang. Some people tried to tell you it was from a supernova. And these are two articles I just ran through. You go back, hit pause, enlarge your screen, and read a little bit, just a little bit of these articles. And these articles have concluded that we were not going through a supernova because the ratio of hydrogen to electrons and the amount of helium that's non-ionized does not fit the scenario of such a supernova. There just wasn't enough energy there. And they found that many of the X-rays, are you ready for this? 40% of the background X-rays, when you look up in the sky and the sky is glowing, the whole sky is glowing in X-rays, that background X-ray radiation comes from particle exchange, electron exchange. They've proven it. They've carried it out. They've got all the measurements. There's been a lot of different people looking at the quote-unquote interstellar medium, the local bubble, blah, blah, blah. And that local bubble sure does kind of shift and undulate as Earth makes its orbit, because its relative orientation to the Earth is changing by the minute. But the electron exchange in this article pretty much talks about exactly the origin of this diffuse background radiation. And that's what we were just showing you, those graphs, just a few minutes ago. Wow. And here it is in big, bold letters. I don't know how bold they are, but okay, no fine print here. Let's just read what the Science Journal had to say about the helium. Singly ionized helium with a velocity distribution extending up to double the solar wind velocity, and that's downwind, and it's ionized, remember, so it's slung by magnetic fields. It's accelerated faster than non-ionized helium. So the distribution, and get this, unambiguously determines, that means there's no mistake about it, the source. Oh, really? Interstellar neutrals, ionized and accelerated in the solar wind, is the source of the huge flux in particles, background radiation, pickup ions, exotic solar wind, cosmic rays. There it is. So we showed you those articles over and over again, but it seems like there's a lot of people that are confused and that are new and that are just trying to figure it out. Well, there's your background radiation and your background energy, all being created by particle interaction, not in the corona of the sun, but out in space. But then when you look at what's happening in the corona of the sun is just lighting up and cooking everything. And finally, they're starting to admit that water temperatures play a huge role in the fish die-offs, not just in lakes, but also in bays and rivers. When the river levels get low, the water temperature still will rise, even though that water is coming off of ice melt. And we all know it's 5th grade science. The hotter any system, the faster it moves. The hotter any molecule, the faster it vibrates. And wind speed is part of that equation. We had record wind speeds in the last 10 years ever recorded on Earth for both tornadoes and hurricanes. And even the tropical storms are starting to look more like hurricanes. So know what's going on. Be informed. Be prepared. But don't be scared. Some of this was foretold. It must happen. So let's all participate together. Let's work together. Because what is happening is obvious to anybody who can look at this map. Extreme ultraviolet cooking the oceans. This isn't just in the United States Atlantic and the United States Pacific. This is global oceans get this kind of radiation from about the 45th parallel all the way down to the minus 45th parallel. Is why all of the planets in the solar system are changing. It's why Jupiter's moons are changing. It's why even Neptune's moons are changing. Saturn's moons are changing. Saturn is changing. Neptune is changing. The big gas giants are all changing. It's all because of A, the cosmic radiation, and the solar corona lighting up. And notice how the tailstream swirling, it used to be kind of uniform in one plane. Now we have co-rotating interacted regions, and they're spinning both in the lateral and vertical planes. These spinning balls of electrons being shot out into the tailstream are creating so many blue magnetic field lines. Look how many there are in this frame. And that's what creates those blue lines is in fact electrons. It's the magnetic field by the sun's electrons. When you have more than one source of electrons, these blue lines we've showed you over and over again, they don't just all travel right to left like they're supposed to. They travel back and forth. And the spinning and the looping of these magnetic field lines is no longer any symmetry. They're looping in all different planes, all different directions. So when you look at the total solar irradiance, and you look at what's happened since the grand solar minimum, you're looking at the X-rays and the radiance coming off the sun today as measured by a half dozen different instruments that are way above any chemtrail layer. They're out there at geosynchronous orbit. And they're measuring one thing, the sun, and the sun is not anywhere it was during the grand solar minimum. It's putting out trillions and trillions and trillions of extra watts above what a baseline used to put out. And I'll make a bet with you. I'll bet you that 2019, the oceans will be the record hottest they've ever been on the globe. How do I know? Because that's what happened in 2018, and 2017, and 2016, and 2015, and 2014. We're steadily getting warmer and warmer and warmer. And as we get warmer, the more the grand solar minimum people jump up and down and wave their hands. And when you see, and you just saw, the carnage that the heat and the sun and the radiation is creating, you got to wonder to yourselves, those people trying to distract you about what the sun isn't doing, then they're actually a threat to you. They're a threat to your health, your children's health, and safety. And until next time, be prepared, not scared. Yes, take vitamin D3, please. Chlorophyll as well. Those are going to help you immensely.